Thank you, Cade. Our next speakers will demonstrate through their work Cade's words in action with specific case studies of sustainable preservation. First up is Andrew Kimball. He is President and Chief Executive Officer of the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation. In leading its aggressive industrial expansion, Andrew has also significantly expanded and broadened the commitment to environmental sustainability, initiating green manufacturing and utilizing the yard's existing buildings in its rehabilitation. If you haven't been over there to see it, it is truly remarkable. Please welcome Andrew Kimball.
Thank you very much, and let me thank the MAS for all they do to enhance the civic dialogue in New York City and the support that they've given me in recent years as we've been redeveloping the Brooklyn Navy Yard. The last time I was in this room, actually, there were fireworks going on outside the window and dancing going on this stage as we presented to the International Olympic Committee why New York City should be chosen to be home for the Olympics. Now, some of you may have opposed that, and obviously we lost. I think I've now moved on to a little more successful undertaking that I'm happy to tell you about. I'm going to take it from the macro that you've heard in the last two presentations, really down to the micro, and talk about a 300-acre parcel located between the Manhattan and Williamsburg bridges on the Brooklyn waterfront that we think has really become a model for sustainability, preservation, and the creation of good-paying industrial jobs that are really so key to creating sustainable communities and sustainable city. So when you talk about the Navy Yard, you got to start with a little bit of history. From 1801 to 1966, really the nation's premier shipbuilding facility, the Maine, the Missouri, the Arizona, all launched from there. It was really catastrophic for the city and the surrounding communities when it closed in 1966. It had gone from peak employment of 70,000 people coming there every day during World War II to about 10,000 jobs in 1966, and that shrunk down to less than 1,000. The city acquired the site in 1968, amazingly through a deal negotiated through John Lindsay and Spiro Agnew at the time, that led to him seconding Spiro Agnew's nomination to be vice president at the time. So it's amazing how things get done in New York sometimes. It reopens under city management, our predecessor organization, a not-for-profit, that really struggled for years with the fact that they were dealing with 50 years of deferred maintenance. And from a leasing strategy, they really focused on what we call the big fix, trying to find one big business that would employ tens of thousands of people. They tried to bring the automobile industry there. They tried to bring a steel mill there. The one business that had traction was private shipbuilding that relied on major government grants and contracts. Our congressional power was shrinking. And in the early 80s, they went out of business in a scandal. Ed Koch at the time appointed a new private development corporation, the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation, which I then run, which began to focus relentlessly on diversification, going small, figuring out how to create a home for the creative class, artists and artisans, and green manufacturers from the surrounding community. A major turning point was when the Bloomberg administration began to invest in the basic infrastructure in the early 2000s, over $250 million now for water, road, sewer, electric, that we've leveraged into $500 million of private investment and thousands of new jobs. Our core mission is to create industrial jobs, particularly within that manufacturing, people who make things, develop underutilized areas, and we've really incorporated into our values as a not-for-profit becoming a national model for sustainable industrial parks. We have an employment center, for instance, that places people. We placed over 1,000 people in jobs in the last 10 years, over 10% of them formerly incarcerated. So again, when you talk about sustainable cities, it is important to have these kinds of jobs. We were really proud to be recently highlighted in a study by the Brookings Institution and the Pratt Center in a report calling for a refocusing on urban manufacturing, the importance of creating these kinds of jobs, and calling out the Brooklyn Navy Yard as a national model. We partner in many ways with the surrounding universities, which we think is a very important part of our success. So why are we so successful? We think the key thing, number one, is that we create a hassle-free environment for for our tenants. They can come in, they can bring their trucks, not get 5 tickets, they can make some noise while they do their work, and they know if they invest in their space and their business, the rug is not going to be pulled out from under them by some future zoning. They also know at the Brooklyn Navy Yard that they're going to get support from their landlord through sustainable investments and create all sorts of business-to-business opportunities. And this just gives a sense of the diversification. It makes me crazy when I see an economist do a report on how the manufacturing bubble keeps shrinking over here, but the arts and culture bubble and entertainment and media bubble keeps growing for the city of New York. Well, 40% of our businesses are related to arts and culture and entertainment and media. They are doing manufacturing, they are making things, and they are growing in size. Some of the other key sectors for us are high-end home goods and woodworking. Food manufacturing is growing in the city, medical services, and we continue to have a very viable maritime industry. A few years ago, we put together a green directory. We realized that the green jobs of the future that everybody was talking about, we already had. We brought in a third-party validator, the New York Industrial Retention Network, that did a survey of our tenants, and that really has helped us to ramp up the profile of the Brooklyn Navy Yard and raise some additional funds to help us build out the space. So why are we doing this? One is we wanted to do this because it was smart business. We wanted to go green because we wanted to build on the green industrial sector. Most of the new tenants that we talk to, and we have a waiting list of 100 businesses trying to get into the yard, they are doing green manufacturing of one sort or another. We obviously wanted to meet the state, city, and federal goals and exceed them if we could. And we also wanted to become a national model for green industrial parks and be a good neighbor as we grew to the surrounding communities. We've undertaken a slew of investments with a yard-wide sustainability program, from water conservation and stormwater runoff. We've partnered with David and others in city government on green roofs and urban rooftop farms. We're putting in bike lanes and bike racks, hybrid vehicles. We run shuttle services out to the subways to get people there. We encourage the business-to-business activity, and we've put in place a yard-wide waste management plan. And this is just a little view of the rooftop farm that's now in development. It'll be 40,000 square feet of local organic produce, which will go into our visitor center and to other green markets in the surrounding communities. This is a lot on our waste management program, but we've put a lot of effort into it. The bottom line is that in the pilot program, where we're working with 40 tenants, we've reduced their monthly waste cost by 27%. We've diverted 90 tons of material from landfill, and we've decreased truck traffic by 90%, so we're building on it. Obviously, the greenest thing you can do is adaptively reuse an historic structure. And the example that we just heard about in Milwaukee is fantastic, but you very rarely hear of a large-scale industrial complex that's being adaptively reused for its original purpose. So all of these buildings, many of which go back to the Civil War, being reused for industrial activity. This just gives you a little flavor of the 12 LEED Silver certified projects that are going on around the Brooklyn Navy Yard. A couple of highlights. This was the first building that we put up a few years ago. It's the nation's first multi-story, multi-tenanted LEED Gold industrial building, the city's first building mounted wind turbines, solar panel. What happens in that building? Art, restoration, and management. 150 good-paying jobs that service the city's cultural institutions. We also partner with our tenants who want to invest millions of dollars in new space. So we partnered with Dugal Visual Solutions that took a low-employment shed. They're investing $5 million, turning it into a state-of-the-art green building to showcase their green products. The next project we're going to undertake, we're calling the Green Manufacturing, Green Manufacturing Center, which adaptively reuses 3 Navy machine shops, focusing on green manufacturing because we're so confident if you build it, they will come. We've worked very closely with MAS, and they've been very patient with us as we've come up with what we believe is a much better plan for the adaptive reuse of Admirals Row. This is a project we've struggled for, a site, a 6-acre site, we've struggled for 20 years to acquire from the federal government, who unfortunately have allowed 11 structures on that building to mostly fall down. We have agreed to incorporate 2 of the historic structures into a redevelopment that not only will create 120,000 square feet of industrial space, a major supermarket for the community, but create a very interesting urban retail destination with historic preservation being a part of it. How do we tell our story? How do we connect to the community? For years we've had the Employment Center, but we've basically been walled off. So for the first time since 1801, we're going to open up the gates of the Brooklyn Navy Yard, invite the community in. We're opening up this exhibition and visitor center in just 4 weeks. The exhibit is going in. It's a combination of historic preservation, taking an 1857 building designed by Thomas U. Walter, putting in an 8,000 square foot exhibit in it, adding a modern extension to the back, being built to LEED Platinum standards. We'll have class visits there. We'll have public programs. We'll have tours of the Navy Yard. We'll have a rooftop cafe. Well, hopefully MAS will come and do a program. We'll have leasable space. And most importantly, to our core mission, we're going to profile the tenants, highlight what they do, and hopefully have their businesses grow. So we hope we'll come and see. We take very seriously our connections to the community. So 40% of the dollar value of this project went to MWBE contractors, 20% to local contractors inside the yard. So for instance, the modern building in the back, manufactured by one of our green businesses, Capsis, that builds modular buildings. And within it, you will get a brochure that will tell you about all the different components that make it a LEED Platinum facility, from the geothermal wells to the modular buildings to the way the Navy put in place many sustainability practices decades ago. They just didn't call it that. And this just gives a few highlights of what we'll be doing with geothermal and capturing the rainwater on the roof. So I think the best way to conclude my presentation is not to hear anything more from me, but to hear from 3 of our tenants who will be profiled in the exhibit.
I am Baldev Dugal, president and founder of Dugal Visual Solutions, the graphics company. To me, it's all a totality of a job. It's not just the visual, it's presentation.
I'm looking at everything, production, the color, the lighting.
I came from India with $200 and a one-way ticket. I used to expose the pictures in my bedroom and wash the pictures in my bathtub. And I said, let's make a deep tank. And they said, there's no tanks made. So I made the tanks. It was the first deep tank processing line ever made. Okay, great, guys. Without my employees, I don't have a company. And that is the biggest asset we have. We want to take the technology of tomorrow, but we still want the craftsmanship of yesterday. I really need to leave a better world than the world I came in. There's a Dugal Energy Solution Company. We started with an off-the-grid light. We put in 50 of them already in Brooklyn Navy Yard. At this point, that's my new passion. This is the greatest country in the world. It gave me an opportunity to be the best anybody can be. I have no desire to be the biggest company in the world. I just want to be the best.
I'm Peter Strugetz. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Icestone. Icestone is a high-design building material made out of windshields and beer bottles and wine bottles. Over 70% of the glass that gets used in the United States once gets landfilled. Countertops is definitely a common application, but anywhere large format marble or granite gets used, Icestone can be used. What we saw in Icestone was a potential for a product that honored triple bottom line businesses. People, planet, and profit. One of the things that Icestone does, besides look beautiful, is takes toxins out of home and commercial environments.
Good afternoon, everybody.
We wanted to have our personal and our business values both be honored and respected in the workplace, and we wanted to create a workplace that honored people and cherished people. You know, in traditional accounting, the bottom line means financial returns, but there are other kinds of returns. Really, one-on-one, how are people treated? There is a loyalty and a support from customers when the product really has a high integrity.
They are truly rock stars in the green manufacturing movement.
And the Navy Yard has stood by us and stood by their integrity around trying to green the plant, because the vision that could be an example for many other cities is really an urban eco-industrial park and create jobs, living wage jobs, green collar jobs. One of the things that we love about being in Brooklyn is the diversity. We have a company that may be 40% Tibetan. We definitely have a mini UN going on. Icestone's business model, our mantra is we just want to change the world one countertop at a time. That's the big vision.
My name is Owen Marshall.
I'm Jim Luton.
My name's Eric Porter.
We are all independent woodworking shops. We share a floor in the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
It costs money to build quality because it's so time consuming.
People get kind of trapped into spending little bits of money on cheap things instead of getting one nice thing. That's what we do. We do the one nice thing. There's approximately 9 wood shops. We all sort of work together.
The obvious things are tools, equipment, advice, sometimes employees.
I think the environment here is definitely very nurturing and encouraging.
I thought there would be more competition between the woodworkers. It quickly proved to be otherwise.
You come into work and the day before was just a disaster. And you tell them a little bit of the story and you feel better.
It's because they're moaning too.
Between all these people, I don't think there's been anything we've ever come across that we haven't been able to solve.
There's not a lemon in the bunch. I know several of us actually rent time on one of Eric's machines. Owen's got some nice big heavy surfacing equipment. Actually got a big delivery of some 2x12 heart pine coming tomorrow.
I've appreciated having that community enough that when it came time to think about moving to larger space, I didn't want to leave the building. Yeah, I hope to be in the Navy Yard for a while.
I can't see being anywhere else either. The only way it would happen is if somebody gave me a building, and that's not going to happen.
Not likely.
Not likely.
Thanks.